Hello, this is the Big Redbourn Sleep Out diary, and it's now 7 o'clock and I'm outside Sainsbury's about to go and buy some hot dogs and hot chocolate. The car is full of cardboard, as you can see, and a guitar and lamps, and there's all kinds of stuff in the boot. Yeah, and I'll be at Redbourn soon. By the way, other supermarkets are available. And so, wearing only my trusty head torch, I am going to try and fashion these materials. We have some tape, and we have some boxes, and we have a penknife into a shelter of some kind for the Big Redbourn Sleep Out. Does my bum look big in this? So this is the inside of my shelter for the night. I've run out of tape, so I can't do any more. I'm getting quite nervous actually now. I know it's silly, well perhaps not so silly. I'm only going outside, and I'm someone who's been camping before, but the thought of just going outside and spending all night is starting to make me feel a little bit nervous, which is interesting. Not quite sure why. Just the unknown, I suppose, and starting to worry about my shelter. Have I done enough? Could I have got some other materials and things like that? So that must be a real issue for people sleeping out on the streets. Where do I find what I need? How do I find what I need? Where's a good place to be? I mean, my worry now is that when I move this thing, it's going to fall apart, and what will I do then? Yeah, so a little bit nervous. I'm still inside. We've got the service to go in a moment and a cup of coffee, so I'll make the most of that while it's here. Well, it's nearly 11 and I'm trying to pull the shelter to the spot I found and put it by the fence. I hope it will get rid of some of the wind. Now it's out here, the shelter is fragile and it's going to blow away. So it's which way do I go? Yes, it's roughly in one piece, I think. I don't fancy going in there now it's outside. Doesn't look very appetising. Never mind. I'll go and get the rest of it and show you it when it's done. I'm just watching the shelter blow about. I'm thinking that's not a good place to put it. It's very windy out here, so I'm thinking I might need to go, there we go, somewhere else. Stuck with last. Now I've covered it with an old dust sheet, in the theory that it will get wet, but it'll maybe keep the heat inside the cardboard. I don't know. I guess there must be a lot of trial and error in all this, finding what works. This is where maybe if you meet other people who've done it before, they will tell you how to do it. But the first time is a bit of a trial and error. So I've just pulled out the sleeping bag, and I managed to pick probably the one sleeping bag in the garage that doesn't have a working zip. So that's not good. But again, I suppose if you're out on the streets, you can't do anything about what you're given. If you're given stuff that's substandard, it's substandard, and this one won't be staying in the garage when it gets home, but I've got to use it tonight, so I just will. But that's an interesting circumstance, isn't it? So it is now midnight, and I'm in. Getting in with the broken sleeping bag was pretty rough, not ideal. I'm very, very glad I brought something to lean my head against. It's very noisy, surprisingly noisy out here. I don't know I'm going to get much sleep, and I'm very glad for this torch. That's better. I'm very glad for this torch. So far I'm not too cold, but it's all very awkward. And I realised that I brought my penknife with me. It just felt like I needed to have it with me. I'm really surprised at how unsafe I feel. I'm in the garden of a church that's locked. You can get in from the outside. I can get round the side if I needed to. And Redbourne's a lovely area, and I'm not being very little chance of being hassled by anybody, but I just feel very vulnerable. So what it's like on a street in a town or in a city where there are lots of other people around, and you know that some of those may want to take advantage of you or not want you to be there, I don't know. The other thing I've noticed just in doing this is time, because I'm somehow out of my routine. How long it's taken me, bedtime doesn't really seem to count. The night seems very, very long because I'm not looking forward to a nice comfy bed and a sleep and a nice wake up. So time seems interminably long, and the thought of not having anything to fill the day tomorrow perhaps must be awful. So I was really pleased that one of the stewards popped down to see how I was getting on, and that offer of help and that offer of support was really valuable. Again, the kind word and someone to share a drink with, really appreciated. Yep, right, I'm going to try and get some sleep now. I will say a prayer asking for safety and protection, and also for those who are like this every night, and maybe even with family or loved ones to care for as well. I can't imagine if I had a small child with me. Just awful. Well, that didn't last very long. I'm trying to go to sleep. The wind's really picked up, and I'm worried that the shelter's going to blow down, so I'm trying to kind of literally hold on to it. And I know I could go inside, but it is a bit scary. Sort of, what if I lose this thing that I've got? Where would I go then if this thing gets taken away? And I'm very worried it's going to start raining, because I'm not really, my head is out in the open. Very different to just going upstairs, getting into bed and turning out the light. On the plus side, I think you must notice things much more. I've already noticed the trees and the the sounds much more than I probably would if I was just out for a walk. I don't know. Let's hope it doesn't rain. It's 1 o'clock. I've just had to do that vital camping manoeuvre of getting out for a wee in the night. Just so much more difficult. And I've lost all the heat that I'd gained. I can feel it now. I've come back. And of course, where do you go to the loo if you're out on the streets? Anyway, it hasn't rained, which is good, and the canopy has stayed in one piece, which is great. I'm starting to feel my body, my shoulders aching a bit from being in the one position on the hard ground. I think I understand now why you often see people without homes on the streets covered with cardboard. You know, you and I, to shut out the world, we close the door, close the curtains, the bricks and mortar do the rest. Whereas out here, how do you shut out the wind and the rattling trees? And if you're in a city, it must be the cars and the traffic and the light. You just have to cover yourself with cardboard or with the sleeping bag, be completely immersed. I actually found it a real comfort just to bring the bit of cloth that's hanging over and dangle it and just put it over my head, so that just that little bit of barrier. Otherwise I've just been waking up every drop of rain or whatever. So 1 o'clock. Good. I am quite tired. I think I have slept it a little bit, or dozed anyway. Starting to think about tomorrow's service and whether I'll be able to do it. So, functioning when you're the day after you've been trying to sleep. That's be another interesting one. Okay, let's go back to sleep, hopefully. It's 1:30-ish. It's been raining quite hard. Just kept me awake, and I've been worried about the shelter, but so far it's staying up, just like me. Got some nice messages from folk praying for me. It is nice to know that people are thinking of you. How you do this on your own with no one to support you, I don't know. The rain just makes everything, don't want to get out. Yeah, how are you going to get dry once you're wet? Anyway, try and get back to sleep. Hello, it's 3:30. It's all gone pear-shaped, or rather it's gone flat-shaped. The covering has just completely collapsed, and I've decided to endure the rain on my face rather than cope with a growing sense of claustrophobia with the wet, damp thing over the top and everything pressing down on me. I've totally lost the sleeping bag, don't know where that is, but I'm actually still dry and warm in my body, etc. So I'm just enjoying the morning rain on my face. And something's, my boots have moved outside. Whether I've moved them, I don't know. It's all a bit weird. Yeah, it's quite traumatic. Not traumatic, but there goes the cover. I've having to deal with the weather in this way, which must be what it's like for people who don't have a house to sleep in, constantly dealing with the weather and the temperature. I'm very well buffered with all my clothes, so that's another thing to think of. People having enough clothes to wear, etc. I'm just watching a spider crawling across the thing. I'm just thinking that's another thing, bugs, and I haven't had any other wildlife as far as I know, but I'm sure if I was out here long enough that would come. So yeah, 3:30. Bit damp, but otherwise I'm okay. Yeah, it's 4:30. Disaster has struck. I've had to abandon ship. Just despite being still warm inside and dry, it was just too. It was getting wet around the edges. I'd lost the sleeping bag. Yes, it was just getting wet and heavy, the weight, and too claustrophobic, really. I was, just felt really uncomfortable if dry. So I've kind of imagined myself shifting from an urban to a city experience. So I'm on the floor outside the back of the garden room in Redbourn Church, which is covered but concrete. I have, I confess, I've availed myself of a cup of coffee and a croissant. So again, I'm imagining maybe someone's come past and had pity upon me and given me something, and it's very welcome. It's cold and a little damp. I was thinking earlier about how low one feels. I don't mean emotionally low, but you feel you're really dealing with the basics. You're really dealing with just keeping warm and dry. So whether you can sleep or not is a secondary matter. You're trying to, but you feel low, as in at the bottom of the list of needs. So this thing of finding shelter, having somewhere safe, having somewhere warm that you can rest in, is really what consumes you. And I think haven't really realised how much I take that for granted. Even, I think I said right at the beginning, is someone who has been camping, but you have all your kit and you have your tent and you have most things you need, at least. And it's a choice. As an experience, it's a choice. Even this, on a one night, although people would probably say, Stuart, it is a choice, you're doing this by choice. Putting yourself in the place of someone for whom this isn't a choice, and this is a necessity, a day-to-day thing. So, thinking, reflecting how important it is, how wonderful it must be when people are able to get a place of their own, get those four walls, get somewhere, even a hostel, a shelter. I sort of finally understand. Well, I don't say I understand. That's silly, that's arrogant of me for one night. But I begin to understand how important a thing that is to give to people. I think I once thought probably that was just getting them off the streets. but I now see it as something which is, from the other side, is a lifting of the person and enabling them to rest in some way from that lowest place of basic need for shelter, to something else, so they can think about other things. Yeah. So see how it goes on the concrete. My bottom is already getting cold. We'll see how it goes. If the coffee and the croissant will keep me going. Well, that was really interesting. It's only 10 minutes since my last recording, and survival just kicks in. So I was sat on the concrete thinking, I've just got a blanket, I'll just stuff it out. And it's raining, and my boots won't fit because of the socks, big thick socks I've got on, so my shoes don't fit. I'm thinking, it's raining out there, I'll just stay here. And then thinking, no, in that shelter there's a sleeping bag and a mat just lying there. So in the end, just got up and went and got it, got wet feet, and I'm back here, but at least I'm lying on the concrete on some sort of tiny mat with the sleeping bag and a blanket. So survival, just, I will go and get that thing, because that's niceties about wet feet and stuff don't matter. Anyway, I am going to try and get a bit of sleep now, because it's getting late, and I've got I noticed when I was walking about how tired I felt, so yeah, try again. Well, it's just turned 6:30, and I thank God that I have got through the night, and remember those who, unlike me, are not going to go into a cup of coffee and a wash, maybe some breakfast, and a warm building, and a community of people waiting to speak with me and worship together. Instead they may be going just somewhere else in the street, or to another place looking for somewhere to live. Just on a last note, I think my thoughts would be, how can I keep my things dry and safe? And for some people it's, what am I going to do with the day? For other people it'll be, how can I get to a place where I can wash, etc., and get ready for work? I think especially of those who, in other parts of the world especially, where they are without a home but they are managing to find jobs, coming back to this after a hard day's work, I don't know. I did sleep. The benefit of the concrete and the awning is that it's very dry, but it's cold, so maybe and hard. I've amazed myself how still I can be. I think since my last video I just stayed in the one position because that was warm. I'm very conscious at home in bed I'm probably fidgeting all over the place, but when time comes I can lie very still in order to keep warm. but I haven't got up yet, so we'll see how stiff and sore I am. Anyway, that's not the purpose of the thing, but yeah, I think I've learnt a lot. It's been really worthwhile doing, and I've been really grateful for the small mercies of, as I say, the mercy of concrete. And there's something I didn't think I'd be saying thank you for this morning. The mercy of concrete, because it's not wet. This particular bit of concrete is under a roof. Yeah. Copy. It's now just gone 7 o'clock on the 8th of December. So that was the Redbourn Big Sleep Out, and quite an experience it was for me. So grateful for all the donations and for the support and encouragement of everybody in the churches. So thank you so much for that. It really did make a difference. It's really good to know that people are thinking of you, supporting you, behind you. It would have been interesting to have some more people with us out there. That's something to think of for next year. I will confess that when I sunk my hands into the hot water in the toilet, which I was going to have a wash in the basin, obviously, not in the toilet, but you know what I mean, in the sink, I let out a little groan of pleasure, because it was, although I was warm last night, there's something about, warm water. A shower would have been wonderful, but a wash was fine. It was just that thing of water and warmth that really struck me. And I suppose, like all things that you've gone without, when you come back to them, so I'm appreciating sitting instead of lying, being comfortably warm. I think the moment that most sits with me is, for now, was just coming in and closing the door. And it's a silly little thing, but just coming in, closing the door behind me, and shutting out the weather really felt significant. And I thought, that is something I do every day. I go in and out of my home, and when time comes for night, I just close the door. I don't really give it a thought. But I hope after this big sleep out, I will more often, when I close my door, think of those who don't have a door to close, who stay out there in the elements, trying to stay warm or dry or safe, with nowhere to put their things that is theirs, nowhere to put themselves that is theirs, and without the ability to do that shut thing. And I hope you too have enjoyed the diary, following the escapades, and I hope next year you'll be able to continue to support us, and maybe even come and join us. I hope I haven't put you off with the collapse. So I'm going to sit here now. I'm doing morning prayer, and then I'm going to write a list of things to do differently next time, including what to do if it rains and where to go. Got a nice big church hall and stuff like that. Anyway, so thank you again for your support, and God bless you all.